It began with a phone call that felt too casual to carry so much weight. Claire had been sitting at the kitchen table, a crossword half finished in front of her, when the phone buzzed against the wood. Unknown number. She considered ignoring it, but habit made her answer. "Claire." "It's Nathan," her brother's voice. It had been months since they spoke, maybe longer, and even then their words had been clipped. Functional. A call about the property taxes on their late father's land, or about cleaning out the storage unit their mother had left behind. Nothing personal, nothing warm. "Hey," she said slowly. "What's going on?" There was a pause, a kind of silence she recognized. Nathan was never one for hesitation, not unless he wanted something. "I was just wondering if you still have the key." "To Dad's cabin?" The question struck her. The cabin had been untouched for years, ever since their father's death. She had the only copy of the key tucked inside a drawer where she kept old receipts and expired coupons. "Why, I just thought—" He exhaled into the receiver. "It shouldn't sit empty forever. Carol's been saying we ought to fix it up, maybe rent it out." Carol, his wife? Claire pictured her sharp smile, the way she always seemed to scan a room like she was cataloging what she could own. "It's not for rent," Claire said. "Well, it's half mine." "Don't forget that." Claire pinched the bridge of her nose. "You haven't set foot in that place in 10 years. "That's not the point." His tone had that defensive edge she knew too well. "It's family property. I just need the key, Claire." Her eyes flicked toward the drawer where it sat. A small brass key on a fraying leather strap, their father's initials scratched into the side. She thought of the cabin itself, the dust collecting in corners, the smell of cedar and old paper, the silence of the lake out front. She hadn't been there in years either, but she dreamed of it often, as though the place carried something her life in the city lacked. "I'll think about it," she said, finally. Nathan sighed. "Don't take too long. Carol's already got some plans in mind." That was the first sign, though Claire didn't know it yet. The first fracture in something she thought was solid. The first warning that what was hers could slip away if she didn't guard it. 3 weeks later, she drove out to the cabin herself. The road was narrower than she remembered, flanked by towering firs that blocked out the sun in long stretches. The cabin stood just as it had in her childhood, weathered wood, green shutters, a porch sagging under years of neglect. The lake beyond shimmered under a pale sky, rippling with the wind. She unlocked the door, the brass key warm in her hand, and stepped inside. Dust swirled in the air. The furniture was still covered with sheets, the way she had left it after the funeral. The bookshelf sagged with old novels her father had collected, spines cracked and yellowed. On the mantel above the fireplace sat a clock that had stopped at 4:17, the second hand forever frozen. She pulled the sheets away one by one, watching the room emerge again. She felt both like an intruder and a keeper of something sacred. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A message from Nathan. "Did you decide yet?" Another followed seconds later. "Carol says we should go up this weekend." "Bring the key." Claire didn't reply. She turned her phone off and left it on the counter. For 3 days she stayed there, cleaning, scrubbing, opening the windows wide to let the air flow in. She fixed the loose hinge on the door, polished the rust from the sink. Each task steadied her, as though she was reclaiming the place thread by thread. On the third night, she dreamed of footsteps on the porch. She woke to the creak of wood, sat up in bed, and held her breath. But when she checked, the porch was empty. The night quiet except for the wind in the trees. The following week, Nathan arrived without warning. She heard his car crunch up the gravel driveway, the slam of the door. Carol's voice trailed behind him. Claire stepped outside to meet them, her arms folded. "You could have called," she said. "We wanted to surprise you." Carol's smile was too wide, her eyes already scanning the cabin, the lake, the trees. "It's so charming here. Needs some work, of course, but I can already picture the renovations." "Renovations?" Claire asked, her throat tight. "Just little things. New paint, maybe extend the porch. Open it up, make it more modern. People will pay good money for a weekend like this." "It's not for rent," Claire said, the words sharper this time. Nathan raised his hands. Hey, no need to get defensive. We're just brainstorming. But she saw it the way Carol slid her sunglasses higher on her nose. How she ran her hand along the porch railing like she was measuring ownership. Claire's chest tightened. She thought of the key again, how it had felt in her palm. How easily something tangible could be claimed by someone who believed they had the right. That night, she found them whispering in the kitchen after they thought she had gone to bed. She stood in the hallway, listening through the crack in the door. "She's too attached," Nathan muttered. "It's just a cabin." Carol's voice was softer, coaxing. "Then we'll make the decisions. She can't stop us forever." Claire's pulse pounded in her ears. She stepped back quietly, but the words followed her into her dreams. The next morning, she drove into town. The county office smelled faintly of paper and toner. She asked to see the property records, and the clerk slid a folder across the counter. Inside was the deed, her father's signature crisp in black ink. Ownership transferred to Nathan Carver and Claire Carver. Joint tenants, her stomach dropped. Joint, she had known it was shared. But seeing it in writing reminded her how fragile her hold really was. She copied the document and slipped it into her bag. As she turned to leave, the clerk said, "Funny thing, there was an inquiry about this last week. A woman called in asking about transfer procedures." Claire froze. "Did she leave a name?" The clerk flipped through a note. "Carol Carver." Claire drove back to the cabin in silence. The trees blurred past. The lake glittered coldly. But inside she felt the ground shifting. It wasn't just talk. They were planning something, and if she didn't act, the cabin would become another story where she was written out. That night, she couldn't sleep. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at the brass key. It gleamed faintly in the moonlight, heavy with meaning. Her father's voice seemed to echo in her memory. "This place will always be yours. Guard it." The sound came again, then a creak on the porch. She held her breath, her heart pounding. Slowly, she rose and moved to the window. A shadow moved against the trees, too tall, too deliberate to be the wind. But when she opened the door, the night was empty once more. She began to keep notes. Each whisper, each strange sound, each document she collected. A record of what was hers and what others were trying to take. She didn't know yet how far they would go, but she knew one thing for certain. She would not let them erase her. The morning after, Claire made her decision. She drove back into town and visited a lawyer she hadn't seen since handling her father's estate. She explained the situation, every detail, every uneasy glance, every document. The lawyer listened, her expression unreadable, then leaned forward. "If they attempt to transfer without your consent, it's fraud. But you need to stay one step ahead." Claire nodded. One step ahead. For the first time in years, she felt the familiar fire stir in her chest. She would not lose this place, not to Nathan, and certainly not to Carol. And so the game began. The silence after Michael's first letter was almost worse than the letter itself. Claire had expected escalation, some new tactic, a demand disguised as courtesy. Instead, days passed with nothing but small disturbances, the feeling of being watched. Objects slightly out of place, faint noises at night that left her lying awake with her pulse drumming in her ears. It wasn't peace. It was the tension before a storm. And she knew it well enough to be afraid. One late afternoon, returning from the market, Claire saw it, a black sedan idling 2 houses down. Its windows were tinted, but she could feel the stare from within. She parked, forced herself to unload the groceries as if she hadn't noticed. And only when she was safe inside did she peek through the blinds. The sedan remained another 5 minutes before rolling away. That night she opened the leather briefcase her husband had left behind. Inside, beneath old financial records, was an envelope marked "if contested." Her hands shook as she unfolded the note. "If they try to take what is yours, remember that paper is proof, but memory is power. Do not let them erase either." It steadied her. Michael might have anticipated this, not his brother, perhaps, but the entitlement. The way some people circled grief like crows. Claire began keeping a meticulous log. Every time the sedan appeared. Every time she heard the knocks. Every detail that might one day matter. Leah noticed the strain almost immediately. She arrived one evening with takeout, took one look at Claire, and said, "You're holding something back." Claire hesitated, then slid the file across the table. Leah flipped through the notes and photos, her jaw tightening. "You should have told me sooner. He's not just bothering you, he's setting the stage." Together, they made calls. Leah's cousin at the county records confirmed their fear. Michael had submitted a request to review the deed. Not an official challenge yet, but close enough to taste. Claire sat at the table, staring at the confirmation email, feeling the weight of inevitability settle on her shoulders. The following week, Michael appeared in her yard at dusk. He didn't knock this time. He simply stood at the edge of the grass, hands in his pockets, and raised a casual salute when Claire peeked from the window. He walked away slowly, deliberately, as if to say, "I decide when this ends." That was when Claire went to the police. Detective Sandoval listened without rushing her. He studied the files she'd built, the photos, the notes. "He's conditioning you," he said finally. "Chipping away until you start to doubt yourself. Don't let him. Build your case stronger. And don't crumble when he expects you to." The words lit something in her. She returned home and doubled down. More cameras. Mail rerouted. A safety plan with Leah. Every move matched by another in her invisible chess game with Michael. The strike came on a gray Friday morning. An envelope from the county clerk lay in her mailbox, official seal stamped across the top. Inside was the notice Michael had filed to contest the deed, claiming family entitlement, questioning the validity of her ownership. The attack had begun. Claire sat at her kitchen table with the letter beside her husband's note. She read both until the fear settled into something colder, sharper. Resolve. "You wanted a fight?" she whispered into the silence. "Now you'll have one." She picked up the phone, dialed Leah, and when her friend answered, Claire's voice was steady. "It's time. We prepare for court." But what Claire didn't yet know was that Michael's challenge wasn't only about the property. He was hiding something older, deeper, buried in the history of the house itself. And as autumn's first storms rolled in, secrets that had long remained sealed were about to break into the light.